All right, everybody. Hey, we continue with our investigation of the COMA method. The previous video, the first video that I made was over context. We dealt with Matthew 13, 53 to 58, which is going to be our first passage in the book of Matthew when we arrive there in a couple of weeks. And so this video, though, is going to move from context to observations. And you should be able to use your COMA worksheet more specifically as it pertains to the observations. There's an entire page of observations that you should make in your passage. Grammatically, especially, are words being repeated? Is there a sense of irony? Is there a theme being developed? Is there similarities, contrasts? What are the verbs doing? What are the nouns doing? What are the pronouns? What are the prepositions? Literally, all of those things makes a difference. And so to save time on this video, I'm not going to walk through all of those, but you should have the attachment. You should have the worksheet. Again, you could ask Terry for that if you need it. She'll have it. But let's just now do some observations within the text. If studying the context asks the question, what came before my passage and what comes after my passage, the observations stay within the passage. You're only looking for things in the passage. You don't leave the passage. And so let's read the passage yet again, and let's see some things that we come up with. When Jesus had finished these parables, he departed from there. This is really hard to catch, but I think it's important whenever you find a phrase mentioned over and over within a book, it's important to take note of it. Notice that this phrase, Jesus had finished these parables and he departed from there, it comes at the end of a discourse. Does this sound similar to when he ended another discourse? Look backwards to chapter 10, the last time Jesus gave a preaching discourse. He finishes his teaching in chapter 10. Now look at chapter 11, verse 1. When Jesus had finished giving instructions to his 12 disciples, he departed from there to teach and preach in their cities. What about his first teaching discourse, the Sermon on the Mount? If you will, look with me in chapter 7, verse 28. Right after the teaching discourse is over, it says, when Jesus had finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. So when Jesus finished, you know that a discourse ends, and now you also know that a narrative is about to come. So before even reading anything else, I'm already starting to think, man, this feels like a stitching. This feels like another seam being kind of woven together in Matthew's gospel, and it is. So verse 53, when he had finished these parables, he departed from there. That's my first observation. Verse 54, he came to his hometown and began teaching them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? ? Is not this the carpenter's son? ? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? ? And his sisters, are they not all with us? ? Where then did this man get all these things? ? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and in his own household. And he did not do many miracles there because of their unbelief. So how many questions do we have? That's what we would call an observation. I am observing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 questions found within Matthew 13, 53 to 58. Whenever questions start arising, you should automatically ask yourself the question, well, how is Jesus going to answer it? Or how is Matthew going to answer it? If that question is not asked here within the passage, then at least you should expect it to come. Whenever there's a flood of questions, start paying attention to what the author is doing. By the way, this is a really helpful resource. I'm just going to put this out here in the second video. If you ever feel like you need help with observations, there's an incredible resource called Constable's Notes, Constables. Constable's Notes out of Plano Bible Chapel in Texas. Dr. Thomas Constable dedicated his entire life to providing a commentary on the scriptures, every single book of the Bible. What he did throughout his entire career is he preached from Genesis to Revelation, and he kept all of his study notes, and he turned them into Constable's Notes, and he's got a ton of information to share with you, both from context, observations, meaning, application, all of it. And so that's one resource. Another resource that you could use for observations, just looking what's in the text, is called Blue Letter Bible. If you go to blueletterbible.org, you can look at the passage of study. then you can click on a button called Tools, and then from Tools you can go to Interlinear, meaning interlinear Greek, and you can start doing word studies. So with that being said, I'm observing that a key word in the text is the word astonished. If you look in verse 54, they were astonished at his teaching in the synagogue. Does the word astonished have any type of importance to it? As I was doing some investigation for the Greek word astonish, what I found was that it literally means to strike out. Maybe it means to miss a strike and to be confounded by it. How are we missing this is really the idea at hand. And so I started looking in the Greek, and when we think of astonished, we're typically amazed in a positive sense. But for them to be astonished means, how could we have missed this? This doesn't make any sense to us. It doesn't make any sense to them because of their questions. We've known him for all these years. We live in a small town of Nazareth, maybe 400 people. How did he fly under the radar? We're almost offended. How have we not known of these capabilities for all these years? So I think it's interesting that they take a negative approach to this rather than a surprised or a positive approach to this. What does this say about what we're observing in the people of his hometown? It's saying that just as Galilee and just as the teachers of Israel also had a theme of rejection, so too does his own hometown. And apparently his household, as we're observing in 57. A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and his own household. So another observation that I'm making is it says hometown and it says household. Maybe the two were really closely related anyways, but hometown, household, astonished. I'm just, picking apart things I'm observing. I'm not necessarily bringing interpretation to them. I'm just looking at things that intrigue me, that kind of compel me from the beginning. Upon observation and continued observation, upon reflection and more reflection, what are some things that I'm starting to see as significant? Another thing that I think is significant here is the word offense. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but verse 57, and they took offense at him. To start, the last unit of study, chapter 11, verse 6, Jesus told John the Baptist's disciples, "Blessed is the one who doesn't take offense at me." And now you see his discourse end, and it says they took offense at him, which means they're not blessed. So maybe I'm getting back into contextual study, but I think the word offense is really needed to see there. Maybe if you're doing more observations, you could emphasize the word prophet. Jesus is, of course, the prophet who fulfills Deuteronomy 18, Moses' ministry. The New Testament, the book of Acts, speaks to Jesus being the prophet who would come from his people. And now it's that prophet who's being rejected. So these are a couple of things to take note of. Again, when you're doing observations, stay really closely related to that sheet and just kind of mine out some of the simple things that you think are important. Remember, yet again, to the home group leaders, you're not necessarily being asked to do homework over this. You're just being asked to know where you should be looking, where you should be facilitating the group in your conversations at home. You want to be able to at least say that you can facilitate the discovery with your group altogether. All right, with that being said, this is video number 2 on observations. Hope that helps. God bless.